Okay, hi everyone, my name is Susan Miller and I'm with Team 2655, the Flying Platypod. Currently, I'm our team's outreach head and I'm here to talk to you today about the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, specifically the Student Support and Academic Enrichment State Grants, and how that has an effect on the lobbying that we're going to do here in North Carolina and the advocacy we'll do through the North Carolina First program. So, to start off, why are we advocating and what's our goal of advocacy within the FIRST program? So here in North Carolina, our goal is to make government funds available to schools to enable and support participation in FIRST programs with an emphasis on engaging underrepresented or underserved populations of STEM. As you can see with the pie chart here, there is a huge importance of state funding and local funding that are going into the United States public education. For that reason, we're working toward engaging our local representatives in Raleigh soon in February. But for right now, focusing on federal funding specifically, only 9% of federal funding goes down into the state and local levels of public school systems. The Every Student Succeeds Act is one of these pieces of legislation going down through the federal level. Although it doesn't seem like a lot, it's even less in comparison to the federal government's budget. But it is a big part of what we're going to see having an impact on our public schools here in North Carolina if we know how to obtain those funds. So, the Every Student Succeeds Act, a little bit of a brief overview. It was passed with an overwhelming bipartisan majority in the Senate and the House and was signed by President Obama in 2015. The specific Title IV Part A, also known as the Student Support and Academic Enrichment State Grants, or the SSAE, is a specific part of the Every Student Succeeds Act that specifically caters to supporting the participation of low-income students in nonprofit competitions. And that also talks about how maintaining a healthy, well-rounded, and well-balanced student. $1.6 billion were authorized to the Title IV Part A, and this money filters down to the state levels through authorized block grants. And we know that for us going into our relationship and how the Every Student Succeeds Act affects us as FIRST students and FIRST teams is that we want to let our local and state representatives know that there is money available and also starting to build those relationships, because going into any advocacy, especially here in the First North Carolina program, we're not asking for money. We're asking to we want to start building relationships with our state representatives so that they can think first whenever they hear of awesome opportunities like this one to get funding down at their local public schools. We want to make a really big impression and start building good relationships that we can maintain for years and years to come. There is a minimum allocation of $10,000 per district, but the districts are given flexibility. And I'll cover how to get that money in just a minute. So, the appropriations for the Every Student Succeeds Act, specifically Title IV Part A. In fiscal year 2017, there were $400 million of the $1.6 billion which were appropriated to the bill. So originally, they said $1.6 billion is the amount of money we're going to need to properly execute this section of the Every Student Succeeds Act. But unfortunately, the federal government only appropriated $400 million of those dollars. So $400 million is what we saw going into states all around the country. There was flexibility from Congress, but different states have different approaches to how to obtain the money. And we'll talk specifically about North Carolina and how you're able to receive money in the North Carolina system in just a moment. In 2018, there was a huge increase and they raised it to $1.1 billion appropriated, which was a huge leap for us, especially since the important part about the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants is that there's specific language in the act that talks about FIRST robotics. Now, it's a little bit covert, so if you go in and you search in FIRST robotics into the entire 80-page long bill, you won't be able to find it. You won't get anything that comes up. But if you look at after-school STEM enrichment programs or mentor-based after-school STEM enrichment programs, you'll be able to find it within when talking about STEM activities. And in the federal budget, they're not able to say, oh, we want to give money to FIRST robotics, however much we would love that. It never happens. So instead, we were able to put in language within the bills that discusses the importance of putting money into FIRST programs and programs that encourage STEM and basically do the same thing. And the language gets down so it's just like FIRST. So back to the fiscal year 2018, 1.1 million were appropriated, and that has only increased in fiscal year 2019. We're super excited. They have appropriated 1.2 billion, and that is for this current fiscal year. So the Title IV Part A, Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grants, is able to support districts with funding for safe and healthy students, well-rounded education, and improving technology in schools. FIRST Robotics specifically relates to well-rounded education and improving technology in schools. Both of those are able to incorporate the robotics piece and the science piece. Safe and healthy students is very important, but it doesn't necessarily involve FIRST Robotics. So all three of these categories are places where the money could go to once you've reached the state level and the district level. So keeping that in mind, FIRST is not the only program that would be eligible for these funds. And not to say that any other program is less important. We definitely want to, just like they always say in FIRST events, you want to support everyone and never knock any other programs down, but we definitely want to push for funding for FIRST, and to do so, that's going to be through well-rounded education and improving technology in schools. So the Title IV Part A basics specifically, how to get the money. That's probably the big question on your minds. Although that's not what we're going to be talking about when lobbying, we definitely want to be aware of how this money is coming down into the state and the district level so that we can talk about it with and have open discussions with our representatives. So to get to the state level from the federal level, it's going to start out with a block grant system. It's based on the Title I formula, which if you go to public school, you might know this as the free and reduced lunch program, or the providing special needs providing special cares for students with these needs within the schools. The block grants, they will go to the states based on need for the most part. And so the Title I additionally carries on as well to how it gets to the districts. So states will implement a formula basis, again based on Title I, but the important thing to note is that you do need to submit an application to your state once you're at the district level. So if you're in a school or at the district level approaching your representatives in the school boards, there is going to be an application that you would need to fill out. So if you ask for any less than $30,000, there is not a needs assessment you have to do. And in the short terms, basically it's easier to get the money. If you're asking for more than $30,000 though, you do have to complete a needs assessment. And that can be included with asking parents, teachers, community, stakeholders, and the district to help you develop kind of the application to submit to the state, and that's going to be the really big one. The applications must prioritize high-need students, so especially talking about first putting importance on underserved communities, using that kind of thing. If you have a lot of students on the Title I programs within your school, again, that's hugely important, and definitely to emphasize that. And districts can collaborate to provide these programs and activities. So if you wanted to ask for more than $30,000, you could always work districts together to help get all the money down to the local level. And 20% does have to go to safe and healthy schools, 20% for well-rounded education, and 60% for other activities, which include providing technology education. There is a 15% cap on hardware and software, but again, out of $1.2 billion, this is a lot of money that is available, and so making sure that we know it's there, we're able to educate people about how to get it, and also start using that as a platform to build those relationships with our local representatives. So for safe and healthy schools, like I mentioned earlier, this doesn't necessarily apply to the FIRST program, but it is important that we know what it is all about, and it is important. It talks mostly about mental health awareness and training, counseling, student safety, violence prevention, professional development, etc. And all of this is very important within our public schools, but again, it doesn't really apply to FIRST. So you want to make sure people know that money is available to go there, but it's not an emphasis for us. Well-rounded education, though, on the other hand, is a very big emphasis. So this is college and career guidance programs using music and the arts to promote student engagement, STEM, which is the big word we love to hear, and computer science programs increasing access to accelerated coursework, foreign languages, environmental education, etc. So there's a lot up there, a lot of really important things. You know, you've got music and the arts, environmental education, but the big ones for us are STEM and computer science programs. First does fit into both of those, especially if your first program stems out of a science class or a computer tech class or a Lego class or however you have that. Knowing that those are there and available to you is really important, and making sure to have that emphasis on the well-rounded education piece when applying for that grant. Improving technologies in schools also does apply to the first program, and it talks mostly about the development, use of technology, building technology infrastructure, and using blended learning projects. First is the most blended learning project. We obviously get a lot of pieces of different types of learning how to use machinery and coding and STEM activities, but also business and learning how to work with others. And those skills can all be implemented into the improving technology in schools, although it might not sound like it off the bat. If you have any questions, please definitely check out the firstncac.org website. Make sure to scroll all the way down to the bottom and sign up for your team or your mentor or your student president or whoever it is, so that we can get more information out to you about upcoming advocacy projects. And if you have any questions, please feel free to check out our website, and we would be happy to email you back if you have any questions or concerns or comments or anything about that. Thank you so much.